Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all my friends on the Earthship. Welcome to my little area of time where we have this series of podcasts called Alchemy Podcasts that I systematically bring each week whenever I can get to it, usually on Sundays. It's teaching us how to be the alchemist of our own life. I am Cindy Carter. I'm an intuitive, an artist, an energy healer, and a spirit consultant. This series of Alchemy podcasts, it really is a progressive building of information, and it does allow you to see your role as the Master Alchemist in your life, like you're the Master Orchestrator of this, orchestra. You're in control. And you are a sovereign being on this earth, and this is your weekly time to remember that for yourself. So, in the last podcast, we talked about the gift of discernment and awakening the gift within you. This gift was the gift of spirit and the gift of alignment, the discernment of your voice and the discernment of your path, your life's experiences. Being discerning of the energy you're putting out. That's, important. So we talked about that last week. You can find that on the YouTube, in the playlist there. Being discerning of the energy that you put out is really being self-aware. So it's a lot to be aware of on so many realms sometimes, what's coming from me and what's coming to me to be discerning about. So what is discernment really anyway? It's the alignment of your heart and your mind. When we do that, we're aligning with the best choices in our discernment. Like, way to go. Feels good. You did it. You saw it clearly for its deception or its truth, which is sometimes deception. It's about intention. So that brings us to today, which is jump the groove. It sounds kind of fun, and the graphic is kind of fun. Lady jumping over stuff. She's jumping over the brain. I assure you it can be fun. But for many of you, it's going to be a difficult task to think about or impossible in some people's views. No, and I'm not asking you to be a parkour expert. If you don't know what I'm talking about. It's, those young people that you see. Well, I say young because I haven't really seen too many old ones. I'm sure there are some older people doing it, some very agile people. They use these obstacles and environmental obstacles to leap and soar and bound over them, jumping and, twisting and turning and flipping in a kind of a graceful motion. They're like synchronizing their mind and their body and their environment just perfectly. So I was thinking of the gift of discernment and the fact that it can be challenging to see our own energy and our own thoughts. So immediately I was given the vision in my brain of a brain, a real human brain. Just when I was thinking of how challenging it can be for others to use the gift of discernment. So here comes the image of the brain. This is how my higher self tends to work with me. I get visions. It's a real human brain. And you see the grooves inside the brain, the tunnels, the folds, the wrinkles. They all hold energy. They all hold high consciousness and connection to so many electrical impulses within the 7 bodies and the layers within the 7 bodies. This is your emotions and your etherics and your mental processes. All that is held within the grooves. So then, right then, I saw that vision. But then I saw in the deepest, darkest grooves, like these little tunnels, underground tunnels that just darted off in these different places. Like you could choose one and you're stuck in it for a while. No way out, no light, just the tunnel. I can see, within that tunnel, I can see packets of thought forms and beliefs and ideas, implants, influences, emotions, all inside this tunnel. Like this is the tunnel of You could fill in the blank. The tunnel of low self-esteem. Well, that main idea in that tunnel is supported by all kinds of voices, all kinds of ideas and influences from your past life and from your epigenetics of your cells, from your ancestors' influence, to keep you deep in that mindset, deep in the spiral of vibration into the low self-esteem, or into the I don't care about myself, or I don't care what happens to me. So what will the tunnel manifest for the body then? Possibly a disease, because of this deeply held tunnel. These tunnels are like pathways, like hiking trails that you've walked 1,000,000 times. Very strong. So we have to understand that through the discernment of this strength that we hold, we have to realize where we hold the strength. Sometimes we're holding it in lower vibration, lower thought forms. They might even get enacted in the body and then outside the body as action of the body. Like it might show itself as you being in a position to step up to yourself and finally get yourself healthy. Well, that means you might have gotten a disease to get healthy. You're a very strong human with strong emotions, and if you keep digging those tunnels and go through each tunnel just taking it for face value, you're stuck. But there's an end to each tunnel. There's passageways out. But, some people find these tunnels quite exciting. There's one tunnel that I've witnessed recently. It's called the Tunnel of Rebellion. Oh, that's a good tunnel. It's a very wide, broad area with so many attractions in it. It's almost like a Coney Island for adults. It's like a dark night of the nasty inside you. I'm hearing it from clients and friends. This tunnel can manifest in consequences based on the level of rebellion that you hold. Like lots of New Age light workers are in a rebellion right now. They're struggling financially. They're like having bad things happen to them because they're holding out the idea that they're never going to work in 3D again. They don't want to ever be forced to work in the 3D world and give it up to the matrix. Well, that's a rebelling against what a soul would really want, which is freedom on an earth. To be free on an earth, you have to participate on some level. So rebelling against what you don't want kind of shows up like what you don't want. So that's kind of like a really ugly cycle. So let's go for another tunnel. There's little tunnels, thousands of tunnels. You see your brain. So what if you eat an English muffin every single day for breakfast? Suddenly you find yourself on the road with no muffin, no English muffin. Only the unknown of what you might eat that day. Oh, horrors, anxiety, the mystery of the English muffin, the anxiety it brings in you. Then the trip becomes one of like a negative light when it could have been about fun and mystery and newness. You see, you need to control your environment when you're in the deep groove. Otherwise, it's an obstacle to hurdle over, to find a way to make another new thought. You have to make something otherwise. You have to make something more available. You have to realize the way out of the tunnel. Turn around, go back. That's how you get out. How can that remain comfortable if you're in the groove? You got to get out. It's to qualify it, sometimes you can stay in the groove in a thought form. And so when a new idea comes to you, you can say, oh my God, no, that's strange. Oh, no way, that's wrong. Absolutely not, that's dumb. Or what the fuck? See, it's this kind of thinking that keeps you so mired in the deep recesses of your brain. You're not able to process creativity or newness or abundance. and any other new potential reality because you are deep under the influence of the groove. Remember, the groove has ancestral influence, epigenetic influence, thought forms, ideas, and traumas in all its expressions. I was thinking of, when we allow others to speak the truth. Well, if you're in a groove, it's easy to deny the truth of others. When you're in this deep groove of influence, when that groove is flashing the neon sign at the entrance that says, I know more than you do. Welcome to the know-it-all tunnel. You can quickly deny another's truth with this tunnel's influence deeply in your brain. If you feel that you know more or you are right above another person, you are deeply in a groove of denial. Your influence is saying more like, I deny your truth. We've talked about that in last podcasts too. We are trying to find our truth and let others find their truth, and let's be peaceful about it. So I think you're kind of getting the picture of the groove and the obstacles and what those folds in your brain can do. They process or try to process, to connect our hearts with our brains and our emotions. It can be really challenging. Depression is certainly a fact of not being able or not choosing to jump the groove of the deep patterns of the brain. So you might stumble and you might fall and it might be uncomfortable, but the graceful movement that is to come with self-awareness is why you continue. You might get bruised. It might be uncomfortable, but it's okay to be out of your comfort zone. There will be grace. There are a lot of uncomfortable outbursts and displays and activities occurring all over this earth right now. Let's not add to it, please. So, parkour. I got the vision of parkour. After I saw the brain, I saw the vision of the parkour. Why the vision of that? Well, because of what they have the ability to do. It's just extremely graceful. No obstacle. Parkour is like a French word. I think it was a training, a discipline from the military where they got to develop obstacle course training. And the aim was to be able to get from one point to another in a really complex, environment without any assistance, without any equipment, and in the fastest and most efficient way possible. Well, that vision and that understanding feels like grace to me. Even if it wasn't military training. Feels graceful to move about obstacles without being attached to them or needing assistance. How can we do that to hack our brains? To get rid of the groove. So you see, when you get visions, you need to explore them. They work together. Life being the course, which is like the obstacle course in the training. That's what life is. Yes, and it does feel like training sometimes. Yes, and it does feel like military training sometimes. But to get out of that, to have a freer expression and a freer movement on the earth, we just need to parkour. Jump it. Get out. Just stop the brain. Stop the madness. So let's look at the mechanics of the brain. No, not the boring parts, just the parts that are part of this groove. And I'm not going to be all scientific with you. I'm trying to be every day. Let's look at the deeper grooves. This to me is like the repeated processes that you create in your mind over and over and over. When animals make a track through the field or a forest the same way, the comfortable way. This is the deeper groove, and it's rife with possible futures in demise and trauma. It's repeated thinking, repetitive thoughts, over and over and over, rumination about depression. You could be thinking about your lack of money, your uncertain future, the pain in your ankle, the food that you eat. I'm not talking about these random thoughts. I'm talking about repeated over and over to excess. Almost like OCD. Like, did I lock the door? Go check 5 times. This groove keeps you there because the walls are so high and your little bitty legs can't propel you over because you don't know that you can, or that you're able to even do that, or that you even have the choice to understand something else like parkour, or the end result of that is grace. Being open and trusting to the universe doesn't seem to be a trait of the groove dweller at all. Groove dwellers, they're kind of like cavemen, you know. Only see the cave. Anything new is kind of frightening. You know, groove dwellers, that's hard to say, but groove dwellers feel like people that choose to bury themselves so they don't get to see all the realities around them because of the influences of uncomfort. It's too profound for them. So let us move into an idea of comfort beyond the groove, that there's comfort to be had in the unknown. Yes, even the unknown universe without an English muffin. Fathom the consequences of no English muffin. I'm just kidding, but not really. I'm trying to get you out of your routine. This is one way of allowing new thought, of jumping out of the groove. When your depression or your thoughts have gotten to a point where you realize they're not assisting you, then you need a little boost to get over this hurdle. So look to a new day and look to a new way. With parkour. Jump the groove. Jump your mind. Pretend you're on vacation in a new house, new bed, new floor, new windows, new scenery. Everything is different, but do this every day. Of course, you have to put on pants every day, but do you have to do it the exact same way, in the same location, in the same mindset, in the same sequence of events? I mean, maybe you've been doing that for 45 years. Well, that groove is getting quite deep. Some grooves are good, and this possibility to deepen the pathway with focus and intention for, say, meditation or exercising, this is body movement repetition, not mind repetition. And for the uplifting mobility of you, there is a difference, and in your heightening discernment, you're here, left to jump to what groove is best for your free movement. But some mind repetition is really good for us, like repeating words or phrases of upliftment, like visualizations. That's always nice. I use 3x5 cards all the time. I love those little things. I keep a stack near me and I jot down little things, doodle little things. Anything that comes to my brain that, wants to spill over, I spill it over right there. I don't always do it, but I've done it with enough continuity over the last 10 years that it really does help to spark new ideas and to keep my frame of reference free and clear. So I put the prominent or the pertinent ones on display, like on my fridge or on my desk or on a windowsill, next to a succulent, all for my memory jog, back to new thought, new ideas, and out of the groove. Well, it actually changes the vibration of a room just to put words on paper around the room, because there is moisture in the air, and water is programmed by words, thoughts, and vibrations. So, So let's talk about brain stimulus. It helps to change things up, to change the routine of the groove. Of course, but there are other ways to stimulate your brain. Changing your routine is just one, but vibrationally changing, the ear canal is a great way. Listening to some really harmonic and uplifting or soothing music in a somewhat safe range of frequency. Can't trust them all, but there is a frequency, 432, that I like especially, if you can trust the source that's making it. so that it doesn't have subliminal influences in the background. It's a thing. There are essential oils that are known to open neural pathways. I mean, have you ever smelled bergamot? Oh my God. Or some of these pines, they just open up like areas of your brain. Tangerine does that for me. Breath. That's one way. I talk about this all so much with my clients because I have a remote healing process called the Kuan Yin alignment that is based in your own breath. It's the conscious breath, and you can absolutely rewire your electrical body if done correctly with a guide like myself. In an hour-long session, you can use that breath to propel you right out of these grooves. There's power in the life force of the breath, and the conscious use of it is very powerful. It's an in through the nose and out through the mouth breath, and you can use this in your daily life just by remembering to breathe deep. Most of us are extremely shallow breathers. This brings very little life force up to the brain. We're trying to bring life force to the brain so we can connect the heart and the brain. This is what we're trying to do here. It's alignment, it's self-awareness. So the brain mechanics are important. Breathing through the brain mechanics is important. Releasing all the trapped air pockets, all the stuck energy, the receding toxins. Breathing into the grooves of your brain and out the stuck patterns. It's like being in a brisk wind that blows away all the debris. You didn't have to even brush it out. This is brain mechanics. It's sometimes called neural plasticity. That's like heating plastic into a shape. I don't really care anything for the word plastic or anything about plastic, but I do understand the intention of the word, to mold it. So I mold the mind through heat transfer and pressure to jump the groove, to change my mind. You see, your prefrontal cortex, if you meditate in that groove for a long time, you might end up twice as big as someone else's frontal cortex. And what will that bring you? No stress, alignment, harmony. Meditation helps the body shift from the stress response to the relaxation response. Pretty easy whenever you choose. It's just one way. But it does feel like freedom on an earth. So in your discernment of all the energy you work with, in the grooves and out of the grooves, the tunnels of love or the tunnels of joy, they're there too. But, you got to live in the mystery of the unknown. And you can parkour in your mind from one groove, hop, jump, skip, fly, right on over to the other one. At will. Not trapped in your thoughts. Not trapped in your influences. No longer just walking the path that others walk, but this graceful, beautiful journey of turns and flips and instant alignment. It's here, if you choose. One way to jump the groove is to listen to these Alchemy podcasts. I made a playlist on YouTube for them so you could find them easier. They have specific information on how to align with your soul, how to retrieve the finer, more compassionate versions of yourself, so you can be self-aware to change your alchemy back to freedom. You can find some things on my website to assist you also with jumping the groove. There's a free ebook of channelings called Solene, the Ancient One, and it is absolutely littered with and layered with jumping the groove initiative. It's what it's all about. So also something else that really accelerates for people is the template of grace. It's an 11-day meditation series that I have as a download on my website. It's only $33 US. It's short 15-minute sessions with Tibetan bowls in the background. It really is powerful and really is relaxing at the same time. And people tell me that all the time with the feedback I'm getting. So right now you can also find me in a new place. I've signed up for Patreon a long time ago and did nothing with it until all of a sudden I had 3 patrons. 3 people that decided to support me that, are really doing, good work for themselves, don't need healings any longer with themselves, with my service. So they just want to support me. A lot of them are my new Sasquatch friends. But you can now find me on Patreon, where I'll be sharing more intimately than I can here on YouTube, more intimately than I definitely can on Facebook. That's a volatile land there. So I'll be bringing to my patrons a safe space where we can talk about Sasquatch stories. And we can share our videos as well as have, conference calls. So I was thinking of having an Alchemy conference call with people who are seeking self-awareness, and then having a Sasquatch conference call so people can share their experiences or get advice. So I'll be sharing some exciting technologies also on Patreon, some subtle energy things that I work with for our, well-being, and a bunch of other things. But if you would, just find me on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can share in these videos and share in these conference calls if you join in. So I look forward to talking with some of you in the future. Just keep up the great work of aligning your spirit and be ready to jump the groove in, a joyful discovery. Many blessings.